Good evening, Mr. Bond fans. If you're a home media enthusiast like myself, then chances are you will have a steelbook or two in your collection. There's something about them that just feels so premium, so high-end. If you're a big fan of a particular film or film series, then having a steelbook on your shelf feels like an almost reverential thing. I always find it especially satisfying when an entire film series has a nice uniform set. So, for those of us who own a fair few Bond steelbooks, the somewhat sporadic and confounding release and design choices can make for a somewhat maddening experience. Bond Blu-ray steelbooks have been around for as long as Bond has been on the format. Back when the initial releases were appearing in 2008, timed with the theatrical release of Quantum of Solace, those Bond films were released in tandem with steelbook versions. Now, I've never owned any of these particular variants. I was a poor and hungry student back in 2008, so I couldn't really justify the additional cost that comes with steelbooks. I could barely afford haircuts back in the day, and you can look at some older videos on this channel as photographic evidence of that. And I must say, I was never a big fan of this particular style anyway. There's a nice uniformity to it. So you have Bond, the Bond girl, golden gun barrel, and then a choice action moment in the iris of the barrel, but I don't think that they make all that appealing designs, and it always bothered me that the Blu-ray band along the top is printed onto the steelbook itself rather than being a removable card. The first Bond steelbooks I owned were the then newly released Skyfall and Spectre steelbooks, and obviously I opted in for the No Time to Die steelbook when that was released too, and these were all in the first wave of home media releases for each of their respective films. I've made videos looking at each of these in turn, but just to recap my thoughts on them all, I absolutely adore the Skyfall one. It uses the IMAX poster for the film as its main art, and then there's an image of the Aston Martin DB5 on the back. The interior sports images of Silver, Severin, Moneypenny, and Q, and it's just glorious. Still probably my favourite Bond steelbook of them all. And then, oh, how things declined rapidly. I admire the intent behind the Spectre steelbook. Clearly they were going for simple and elegant, but it's more just bland and inspiring to me than anything else. The bullet hole with the cracks coming out like the octopus tentacles is nice in theory. This is obviously based on some early teaser material for when they were first announcing the title of the film, but I think it's a very boring steelbook all in all. Even inside it's quite uninspired, with just the 007 logo half printed along the bottom, and it seemed to be a bit of a trend for future releases really, but more on that in a bit. And then of course we have the No Time to Die steelbook, which is, well, okay, I mean, I like it well enough. It bothers me endlessly that the card doesn't wrap around the whole steelbook like the 007 logo does, but over the years I've come to make peace with it. The interior features imagery from the film with Bond and Nomi from the climax, which is really nice, and I love that they use that really nice blue for the title text. All in all, a lovely bit of kit. So traditionally, I'm not in the habit of double dipping on home media releases if it's essentially the same disc in a different case, which is why I've let several Bond steelbooks slip through my fingers, but in 2022, for the 60th anniversary of the series, a particular collection was released here in the UK. It was exclusively available on Zavvi.com, and I succumbed quicker than a flirty hotel receptionist when James Bond is checking in.
Welcome to the Ocean Club, sir. Checking in?
This set features artwork closely inspired by the opening title sequences of the films, and seemed to be a much-delayed continuation of a set that I let slip me by, but was initially released in 2015 to tie into the upcoming release of Spectre. This set featured new steelbooks for the first 3 Craig films, and then a bunch of films prior to that, all involving Spectre and or Blofeld in some way. I really liked the artwork style back then, even though I wasn't in a position to justify the purchasing, and I remember assuming that the rest of the films would likely follow in this same format, though I would never have assumed it would take 7 years for them to complete the set, and even then there are films suspiciously missing from this particular art style, but more on that later, because in 2022 I was just fawning over the majority of these steelbooks. First, and probably most notable, is the release of Dr. No. 2022 was of course the 60th anniversary year of that film in particular, so it made sense that that film got a bumper release. As well as a steelbook, there were a bunch of goodies included in the chunky slipcase, including some art cards, a poster, which, I'll be honest, I never really like it when posters are included in home media releases. They always just end up folded up in order to fit into the packaging, meaning that they always have these creases down them, which I always think kind of ruins the whole poster, if I'm being honest. But anyway, much better is a lovely little booklet featuring some Ken Adams sketches and stills from the film, and most randomly included also were some cardboard pieces that you could use to construct yourself a little model of the dragon tank seen in the film. It's a cute idea, but I'm already severely severely limited when it comes to shelf space for Bond things, so I've never actually gone to the effort of building the thing. Maybe when I eventually own my own home and have a dedicated room of Bond, I might well construct it then. And then we come to the main event, the Steelbook itself, and it's interesting to compare this to the Spectre Steelbook, because I feel like the Dr. No one really succeeds in a similar area where that one failed, in making something super classy and sleek through simplicity and looking gorgeous in doing so. I love this Steelbook. I think it's absolutely beautiful. The red and black is really striking, using the iconic dots from the opening title sequences. A brilliant idea, though admittedly, if you're looking for art inspired by the main titles, it's either this or rotoscoped dancing people or silhouettes of three guys pretending to be blind, so the dots are perhaps the obvious choice. The remaining 9 films were released without additional goodies, swag, and or tat, depending on your perspective, but nonetheless, some of them are really beautiful. Now, to work backwards through the film series, we start with The World Is Not Enough, which features a figure in oil. I have to admit, spending an inordinate amount of time trying to figure out what body parts I'm looking at here. I had to go through the title sequence to figure out exactly what it is. I guess it's just removing the nipple from the breast is kind of what threw me. I didn't know if this was a thigh or an arm or a buttock or what. Anyway, I kind of wish that they'd gone with some of the more psychedelic oil spill stuff from the title sequence, but I still really like this Steelbook all the same. The Tomorrow Never Dies one, on the other hand, I absolutely adore. Taking the X-ray vision imagery of the watch, it's mostly shades of grey, so it doesn't quite pop as much as some of the others do, but I just, God, I love this one so much. It feels so apt for the film. And while we're on the subject of popping, the License to Kill Steelbook is another one of my favourites from this particular set. I adore the red, the camera shutter lines, the dancing woman. It's a beautiful look, and one that I really, really love, one of my absolute favourites from this set. Then on the flip side, we have one of my least favourites of the set. Actually, no, this is my least favourite. It's The Living Daylights, and it features this big hatted woman with a projection of a gun firing on her body. I just don't think that it's all that interesting an image, and her hat looks like a flying saucer from a 1950s sci-fi film. If I had to pick an alternative image from that title sequence, I guess I'd just have gone with the red bejeweled hand firing a revolver, or maybe even the lady in the champagne glass. I don't know, I think there are better options from that film's title sequence than this one. Enough with the negativity though, because it's A View to a Kill next, which is another one that I just love. The two dancing women with the 80s hair and body paint flames. It's such an iconic image from that film's title sequence, and it's the perfect choice for this Steelbook artwork. Next up is Octopussy, which opts for the projected silhouette of Bond on a pair of ladies' hands. All well and good, but I think the octopus projection is also, like, you know, I mean, it's right there and probably more apt for this particular film, I would have thought. As it stands, I like this one a lot. It just feels a little bit blander and less specific to the film it's representing than some of the others. Moonraker, on the other hand, is another one of my absolute favourites from this set. The moon right there in the centre, the multiple flipping silhouettes. I love this nighttime shade of blue for the clouds. I think it's a really classy one and really quite lovely. But now we come to my absolute favourite in this set, and the one that I think picks the most, just the perfect image from the titles to represent the film. It couldn't have been anything but this. The iconic Union Jack parachute, and it's front and center with the hands either side of it, caressing it. It's just perfect. I absolutely love this The Spy Who Loved Me Steelbook so much. And I also love the Man with the Golden Gun one too. So many of the other Steelbooks in this collection have red, blue, grey, black as their primary colours, and I think that this one really stands out. I mean, well, obviously it stands out because it's just pure gold, and it's quite gorgeous for it. It's probably my second favourite of this particular set, and it of course features the Golden Gun itself, though admittedly this one feels like more of a cheat than the others, because they all feel like they could well be touched up screen grabs from the film's title sequences for the most part. And yeah, hand holding a golden gun does appear in the titles of the film, but the colour scheme is still, you know, it's dark, it's purples, it's reds, it's blues, far more prominent than gold, whereas if you were to, you know, come to the film for the first time expecting a pure gold title sequence, well, sorry, you're going to be disappointed. But you know what, I'm fine with this particular liberty being taken, because, as I say, I think this is really quite striking and a beautiful Steelbook to look at. A lovely collection, if an odd selection. I don't know what Die Another Day, GoldenEye, and Live and Let Die did to piss someone off somewhere, but none of those films has ever had an official Steelbook release in this particular style. Live and Let Die and Die Another Day got Steelbooks way back in 2008, and GoldenEye had one of its own, being the special little snowflake that film is. is, but it's based on poster art rather than title sequence art. Goldfinger also had its own special steelbook this for its 50th anniversary, and while not exactly the same style, it does make use of title sequence iconography, so it can certainly blend in with this set. Titans of Cult released another steelbook of Casino Royale in special packaging, which looked very nice, and in the lead up to No Time to Die, the Craig films all got 4K steelbooks with the actor front and center in a style completely of their own, and I have to admit, not one that ever really appealed to me. So yeah, I've resigned myself to the fact that there will never likely be a truly uniform set of James Bond steelbooks, and it will be a forever ill-fitting collection. But that's okay, I'm not about to double dip on every single steelbook, but when a style comes up that I like, I'll spring for it, then spend the rest of my life waiting for a complete set that will never be. Do let me know in the comment section below if you own any James Bond steelbooks and what your hopes are for the future. Also, below you can click the subscribe button and the Mrs. Bell notification button to stay up to date on future video uploads, and with all that being said, and until next time, Bond fans, so long for now.